Hey, what's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we're going to talk about one of the most underrated nu metal albums of all time. And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Yes, today we're talking about Taproot, which is a band that formed in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1997. They're probably best known for their hit single Poem from their 2002 album Welcome, which received regular radio rotation and also music video rotation, but we're not here to talk about that album. What we're here to talk about is their 2000 debut, Gift. Gift is an amazing album that I feel like gets sorely overlooked in many cases in the nu metal scene. Now, when I have conversations with people, I'm not going to act like people don't know this album, and so it's there, but it's not like in that pantheon of when you think nu metal, people talk about Slipknot, they talk about Limp Bizkit, they talk about Korn, Disturbed, they talk about these other bands, and Taproot rarely gets brought up, and somewhat for good reason, because they don't really have the staying power. This is really the only album from them that I actually enjoy, but it's a really solid album that honestly I would put in my top 10 or even top 5 possibly nu metal albums of all time. I actually saw them perform a lot of this album live at the Metro in Chicago, and the lead singer did like a swan dive off the balcony into some crowd surfing, and it was a great early formative experience for me, and I think one of the first metal concerts that I ever went to. But yeah, this album is pretty consistent, especially for the time. Like, when I think of nu metal albums, even though there are ones that I love to death, even some of my favorites tend to be known for being kind of bloated, having a lot of tracks. Like, CDs were becoming more and more popular at that time, so it's like, hey, we have all this more space, let's fill it out with stuff. So you end up with a lot more filler and these really long albums. But Gift is a really concise album at 44 minutes and just 12 tracks, and really all of them have something to offer. Smile is a great opener. You got that kind of quiet, foreboding guitar riff coming in, and then all of a sudden the big groovy, intense headbanging riffs kick in. And man, what a fun, like, solid intro way to kick off this album. But the first track I heard from this album was when I saw the music video for second track, Again and Again. This one is just so much fun, and I was just captivated seeing this one. You've got that kind of clicky little electronic intro, you're not sure what to expect, and then they hit you with that amazing guitar hook. So simple, but very effective, just kind of doo-doo riff where it's just dun 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 dun. Very infectious, perfect for somebody, again, who's at the time listening to things like Slipknot and Soulfly. And what really struck me about watching this band was not just the guitar riffs, though. It was also the way that the vocalist so adeptly and quickly transitions between the nasally, high-pitched clean vocals and his more aggressive, harsh vocals. It's this very schizoid approach where he'll be singing one second and then screaming, and he'll just rapid fire switch back and forth between them. And it made for something that was fun, like, because I was starting to start some bands around that time in high school and tried to implement this into my style, and it's kind of easier said than done. Emotional Times, another fantastic track. I love the opening of this one as well. A lot of these tracks have really solid, like, a hook to just get you in the door and just keep you going, and this one has that great opening lyric of "Life sucks sometimes, friendships turn to..." Great stuff. Could definitely relate as a moody, angsty teenager at the time. Great chorus on this one as well. Another great vocal moment there that I loved to imitate over and over again, how he syncopates the final syllable with fine. Like, most people would not choose to sing that part that way, but he made a decision, and I think it works really well. One Night Stand has a really cool kind of hooky guitar riff on it too, and it's interesting that even though these guys weren't as big, like, I associate them with a particular sound, and that's something you commonly only get from bands that kind of had more of that staying power. Like, you hear a Slipknot song and you hear the guitar tone and some of the qualities of the vocals and the atmosphere, and you immediately know it's a Slipknot song. Same with Korn, same with a lot of bands that were kind of bigger in this time. But I feel like Taproot had a lot of that as well, and it's partially the vocalist, but it's also more so like there's this distinct quality to the guitars. The particular sound, the tonality of it, the use of reverb. There's just something about the combination of the effects that they're using, and then just also the way that they're approaching the riffs that always makes me like, you play a sample of any one of these songs that's even just like 2-3 seconds long, and I'll immediately know it's a Taproot song.
I'm seeing tunnel vision in a world that's dark and cold. I can't believe how much I've changed since the days that old. I know it's temporary, but I need to focus straight.
Another one of my favorite tracks on this album, a little bit more of a deeper cut, is I. This is a very kind of emotional sounding song, which again, perfect for nu metal. Like, nu metal's known for having those big like tearjerker moments. When I picture nu metal, I often picture like a big burly dude in a battle vest who's also like crying while he's throwing up the horns. And like, this is definitely one of those songs. Very simplistic riff, which made it easy to learn, again, which was perfect for me. Perfect right time, right place, because I was learning to play the guitar. It was very easy for me to pick up how to play this one. And again, even though it's simplistic, what it lacks in that technicality and musicianship factor, it absolutely makes up for in the overall just emotional impact of the atmosphere and especially the vocals.
I need forgiveness from the people I truly care about. I need support behind my back to help me spit it out. I'm gonna when I can.
He's doing like this kind of half-rapped but like sort of whiny nasally side to it that makes him sound like he's about to cry at moments, and it feels very genuine. And then he breaks into this very passionate chorus where he's talking about how sometimes he hates himself, sometimes he loves himself, and how it's this sort of balance that he sort of needs in his life, which is something that actually over the years I've come to relate to even more. It's like this song connected with me as a teen, but whereas a lot of those songs from that era kind of make me cringe a little bit now looking at the lyrics, this one I feel like is actually more relevant than ever. So I guess what I'm saying is this album holds up pretty well, more so I would say than a lot of other albums from this era. Another just kind of fun track to headbang to, Mirror's Reflection. It's got another just great opening riff, very dark. You're kind of not sure where it's going to go. They keep it on the quiet side. They definitely have kind of a formula across this album where it's like, okay, quiet, foreboding guitar intro, and then boom, like explosion with the drums and a scream and everything. But they do it so well, it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Another great example, too, that I would use to illustrate what I was talking about with the vocal patterns. Like, he's got these parts where it's this, like, really fast, frantic, kind of almost hip-hop styled part, and then he's injecting these really intense screams throughout it to kind of punctuate key points. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like when you're listening to rap and they've got the hype man who kind of just repeats certain words along with with the main vocal line. It's like that, except replace the hype man with just screams. But yeah, I could go in on a deeper dive with each song, but ultimately what I really just want to pass off to you is that if you have not heard this album before, then you should definitely consider checking it out, especially if you still like are in tune with that inner nu metaler inside of you from back in the day. I know that I definitely am, even though I'm much more now into black metal, technical death metal, things that are more intense and brutal. I still have a soft spot for certain things. And honestly, part of what spurred this on was listening to that new Tala Matrophagy album that I did a review of, and that is just a straight up, like, from this era nu metal album coming out in 2020, and it just reminds me of what got me started in metal to begin with. Like, these are my roots, whether you like it or not. And I feel like nu metal was a really bad word for a long time, but this generation very much came out of it, and so they accept it as something that was important. But yeah, a lot of people slept on this thing, which was kind of cool back in the day. I consider this also to be one of my first kind of like hipstery moments where I was like, oh yeah, Taproot, Gift. This is like my underground album that me and my close group of friends know about, but nobody else knows about. They're all talking about the self-titled Slipknot album and Iowa and Issues, but we're talking about Gift. We were so cool, man. So edgy. But being real though, I do feel like a lot of people slept on this album, and as a result, it's kind of unfairly just flown under the radar when it deserves to be up there with those same albums that I just named. So yeah, let me know down in the comments. Go listen to this album if you haven't already, and then come back and let me know what you thought of it. And then if you're like me and you're a longtime fan who has been listening to this album for a long time, then let me know your favorite track on here and your favorite story about listening to this album or seeing them live. Let's have a conversation down there. I do try to reply to as many comments as I possibly can because I enjoy it. But yeah, otherwise stick around because I got plenty more reviews coming up. I know this was more of a retro one, but I've got more recent album reviews that you can check out on the channel. Also tier lists, interviews with bands on the podcast, you name it, we've got it. So plenty of reasons again to subscribe if you have not already. Also in the description, you can find links to our social media, the email newsletter, and our Patreon and Subscribe Star if you want to take that extra jump to becoming a full-on supporter. Just $1 a month gets you early access to content and keeps this train a-rolling, so I'd really appreciate it. And then, of course, there's metaltrenches.com for even more reviews and content to check out. But that'll do it for this one. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.